With internet access being so easily acceptable as it is today and continuing to grow in that direction, a new issue arises, and that is online gambling. Now, I know it might seem regulated or anything, but the truth is it's not. I was first introduced to it, I believe, about senior year, and I did get into it, but that being said, as I grew and more people started to do online gambling, it was clear to see that a real addiction could be formed here because quite a few of my friends became quite addicted to it to where they were constantly in debt, always owing money, and I believe that issue needs to change. Now, today, let's begin talking about the laws in Arkansas when it comes to online gambling. Well, let's start nationally. Nationally, the online gambling is a little bit of a gray area just because it's mainly based overseas. So that being said, the government has a tough time regulating such gambling, especially online, since they can't always see what you're looking at, always monitor each and every person. It's hard to enforce that. Now, in an excerpt from the International Debates on February 2007, Volume 5, there is no U.S. law that specifically prevents gambling on the internet, but in some states have banned the practice or placed restrictions on it, meaning, like I said, there's no way to enforce this. In Arkansas, there is gambling, there's casinos. You have to be 21 to enter a casino. You can gamble at 18, but only on horse races or what's called pari mutuel betting, which is where there's a big pool of people and all the bets go towards the one horse or a different horse or multiple horses, etc. With that being said, it's easy, with the gambling being surrounded by us in Arkansas, it's easy to resort to online gambling, especially for the underage kids, which is where we see a real issue. Because as they're developing, their brains are more likely and susceptible to addictions. As Gainsbury said in the relationship between internet gambling and disordered gambling, given the similarities in the experience and the excessive use of the internet and gambling and gaming and the potential for harm based on excessive internet use, pathologic use of internet gambling also warrants specific consideration. Basically what he's saying is that with online gambling in the youth, it's already that much easier to become addicted simply because our youth today is almost naturally addicted to our electronics. We're always on them, blah blah blah. Or that being said, excuse me. But that being said, it puts us at a more likely risk underage to form an addiction to gambling if we are exposed to it early on. Now, let's discuss how this affects the underage more. As we all know in America, we believe certain things should only be legal after our brain is fully developed, such as alcohol, some states marijuana, gambling, etc. With that, we recognize that in the right use, those things are just fine and can be enjoyable and can help in some ways. But we also understand that those things early on can be very detrimental to a human being. So it's very easy to form addictions at a young age, and that's why this is a real issue in my eyes. When you are younger, you're more susceptible to being addicted to anything. Like I said, we basically are born addicted to electronics nowadays. According to Alyssa Skylar and Jeffrey Dernovinsky, casino ads are coded for reoccurring themes, symbols, and discourses, which makes it more targeted towards underage kids, which we see with alcohol ads and things of that nature, that they do target underage kids. And when you do that, it's easier to push them to online gambling simply because it is the most accessible one. Uh, the excuse me. We need to find a way to prevent this. We need to find a way to prevent underage gambling, and uh, effective ways of doing that, even though it's in such a gray area, like I stated earlier. Our first option would obviously be for law enforcement to get involved and find a way to regulate each and everyone's internet usage, but simply put, that is just not possible. It is offshores accounts, Bitcoin, untraceable things. It's not going to work legally simply because it's offshore. That's why it remains in that gray area of the law. My proposition is that it has to start at home. I understand. I mean, coming from my point of view, I am one of the first generations to grow up from a young age with internet access, or at least under the age of 10. With that being said, I know different strategies parents take, and I've seen how they affected me as well as my peers. And with that being said, my proposition is to just talk to your kids, let them know you know what's going, like, you know that that's there, you know that it's dangerous. Be open about it. Find ways to monitor without pushing the kid more towards doing something he's not supposed to just because of that nature in and of itself. We have to regulate what our kids look at, and just to protect them from this awful addiction. Now, today I talked about the importance of online regulation, and that really can only come from oneself and their family members. So we need to start taking prevention at home and start monitoring what your kids look at, and make sure that they are not exposing themselves to an addiction too young. Thank you.